G'day humans, Chris Stead here. Today I'm comparing two great automatic coffee machines from two big names in the space. We've got the Philips and the Delonghi. It's the Philips 5400 versus the Delonghi Rivelia. Let's dive in. So I reviewed both of these machines independently on the channel. So if you want to go deeper and dive right into the features on each and also see some coffees being made and just get really into the thick of it, make sure you check out those individual videos after this one. But in this particular video, this is basically for people who are umming and ahhing between the two and wondering which one is right for them. And then this is what we're going to dive into and talk about in my Philips 5400 versus Delonghi Rivelia comparison video. So let's start with the price, because that's the first thing you're going to notice, right? So there is a difference. So while I would say it's very comparable, and we'll go into the specs in a sec, the Delonghi retails for $16.99 in Australia and the Philips 5400 retails for $13.99 in Australia. So realistically, you're looking for about a $300 like premium buff on the Delonghi Rivelia. But I've gone and actually seen what the prices actually are, and I must say that it is the end of financial year sales right now, so you're not always going to get at this price, but at the moment, this one is on sale on the official Delonghi website for $13.99, so $300 cheaper. And it's the same price on the Philips official site. Now on retail sites, it's a bit different. You can get this for as low as $1,100, but the point I'm trying to make here is the price difference may not be as significant as the $300 would suggest. Now let's jump in now and have a look at the specs kind of side by side and get an idea there of what you're getting for that money. Now starting with the basics, look, there's a fair difference in the release window there. So what are we looking at there? Two and a bit years, almost 2.5 years between the Rivelia and the 5400. You know, coffee machines potentially don't evolve at the rate of some of the other technology we see on this channel, you'll see on my channel, but still that's a significant difference. The price, as I already mentioned, is about $300 price difference there, depending on where you can find it for, or what you can find it for, and what sales are on. Now, weight-wise, very interesting, and we're going to dive further into this as I go deeper into this comparison. But the Delonghi Rivelia is considerably heavier, but as you'll see, it doesn't feel like a bigger machine. And even if you look at those dimensions, it even feels like it's going to be taller. And then more or less, it's very similar, but it looks a lot smaller in person, as you'll see when we get closer to it. Now, capacity is a big difference between the two, and it's something I'm going to dive into deeper in a second. But if you're looking at the raw specs there, despite being the heavier machine and the taller machine, the Rivelia actually gives you less bean capacity and less water capacity, which means you're going to be needing to add to both of those more often. The grounds also fills up quicker on the Rivelia, and you can get a slightly smaller cup, like not much smaller, but a slightly smaller cup underneath the spout as well. Now, if we look at the way the coffee's been put together, there's obviously a lot more going on than this, but this is kind of those top line features there. You got slightly more, like one more preset beverage you can access through the Rivelia. You got stronger pressure, like significantly stronger pressure. You've got less grind settings on the Rivelia, so you got more I guess customizations options with the Philips, and not mentioned here as well, you got 3 temperature settings on the Philips, whereas you only got the 2 on the Rivelia, and there's only a couple of degrees difference between them anyway. It's not really a feature. And the user profiles, look, you both got 4 user profiles there, which is more than you're likely to need in most general households, I suspect. And again, there's lots more features than I've listed here, but just pulling out a couple of the more notable ones. Obviously, the touchscreen's only available on the Rivelia, and that's a major point difference. I'll go deep into why in a second. They both have hot water. You can just get hot water out of it. You both got aroma functions. They can both do 2 shots at once. And interestingly, and importantly, the Rivelia is the only one of the 2 that has the dual hopper option, so you can have 2 kind of coffees on the go. Righto, so we're going to go now and compare the actual 2 in terms of my personal experience with them. And look, I want to start off by saying they both are really good machines. You're going to get great coffee out of both of them. But as we go into here, I do feel like there is a preferred option depending on kind of what you're after. So we'll start with the positives of the Philips. Now, the Philips here, obviously there's a design difference, as you can see. And so this just might be a preferable look for you with the Philips. They do come in different colors. I do think that potentially the Rivelia has a more premium finish to it, which you might expect from that extra $300. A bit more, just a bit higher quality. It's a bit less plasticky feeling I'm looking. But the Philips is no slouch. Now, one of the big positives about the Philips is that the screen is facing outwards. It's facing at you, which means that when you're looking at it, well, you can easily see it no matter how tall you are, and no matter where it is on the bench, you can easily get to this screen. Whereas with the Rivelia, it points directly upwards, and that actually becomes quite a challenge for people who are shorter, and also depending on where you sit on your bench, because obviously you're gonna have to kind of sit it a bit closer to the front if you want to look over it without smashing your head on the top of the overhead pantries. So that's somewhere where I really wish the screen on this was just a bit angled so it was a bit easier for everyone to access. But the front facing here, that's definitely much easier to access. The capacity on this is bigger, so you've got more water. It could hold more grounds in the ground thing here. And it holds more beans as well. So that basically means it's less hands-on in terms of having to maintain and just keep it going. So it's an automatic coffee machine we're buying here, right? So the less amount of work you got to do, the better. Whereas with this, because it's got smaller grounds capacity, smaller water capacity, and smaller bean capacity, it just means it feels like you're a lot more often going in and out, just trying to like empty things. You're much more likely to go to have a coffee and it to say, you need water or you need to empty the grounds thing. First world problems, not a big issue. But that is definitely a difference between the two that's worth noting. I do find that the Philips also creates kind of more aroma. I don't know if it's because of this concave here, but it tends to just kind of fire a nice coffee smell out a bit better than the Delonghi Rivelia, where it kind of tends to just drift off down the back. So if you like that kind of, wake up in the morning and that smell of a cafe kind of in your room, then that's where you're going to get a little bit of benefit out of the Philips 5400, in my opinion. All right, let's jump across now to the Delonghi Rivelia and what makes this device stand out. And there is plenty to love about the Rivelia. And in my opinion, it probably justifies the extra $300. Now, obviously the design is very different and personal preference to an extent, but I much prefer the design of the Delonghi. It's a much smaller footprint. And it's interesting because if you look at just the dimensions, this comes in as taller because the hopper sits a bit higher than this. But you can see, looking at them side by side, this is just a lot less, it's a lot less there's a lot less physicality about it when it's sitting on your bench. It's a lot more blended in, it's a lot more sleek. This does come in different colors. This comes in 3 colors as well. You can get this in black and get it in pebble gray. It's a shame I don't have 2 black ones side by side, but I actually love the white. It looks fantastic. It really blends into the kitchen a lot better than I would have expected. I personally wouldn't have opted for white, just by choice, straight up, but now that I've got one, it's really, really good. So this is a design functionality I think is a lot better. They're both really good with just like sliding in and out, like that's your water, it just comes in and out. You can all do it one-handed. This one's really simple as well. I'd say this is slightly more easier to access and move things around, but they're both pretty good, but this is slightly more easier. Now, I did mention that the screen was a bit of a con on the Rivelia before in terms of the way that it's angled and the way that it sits a bit harder to access, but the screen itself is amazing. So it's really sharp picture and it's very responsive and everything's touch screen. The UI is really, really smart. It's really good does a really good job of allowing you to easily select your profiles. It prioritizes the cups that you have most often. You can muck around with capacity of the what's coming out and so forth. So that side of it, the screen experience and the UI experience, I think is excellent on this. Whereas with the Philips, that's not touch screen. It's a much smaller screen, and you're kind of doing everything via independent buttons, which some people may like, but they're not analog buttons. They're still kind of touch screeny buttons. So you kind of end up having to go through a lot more UI here to get a coffee out, whereas this one's a lot more quicker and faster in that regard. And this one also has like video tutorials, really sharp high-res video tutorials on the screen. So if you need to do some cleaning, some descaling, just look up anything. You can actually just access the tutorial directly on the device and it will show it to you on video, which is really cool. That's a kind of that extra premium that I can see why they've kind of put that extra couple $100 on it, because that is definitely a better experience in my opinion. The height between the two doesn't change, so this can go up and down, but it sits, this can go up and down as well, but they ultimately sit at roughly the same height. I think this is 140mm cup it can take, and this is a 145 millimeter high spout. So it's probably the same size cup. So neither of them are going to be able to sort your big travel mug, or your travel mug or your thermos or something like that. Neither of them are going to fit that in there. Now with the Rivelia, the milk frother is bigger, a lot bigger, and that's kind of a curiosity. You're never going to need that much milk unless you're making like 5 coffees back to back basically, or you're doing like hot chocolates for the kids or something like that. We tend to just fill it to about there. So that's kind of, I don't know why it's so big, and it doesn't really, I guess there's nothing else I could really do with that space, but it's kind of unnecessarily big, like that's fine. But I do find this does a way better milk frothing. It's a lot easier to access because the controls for the milk frothing are directly on the actual device. So like this. So that's allowing you to basically go through 3 different froth settings and a clean all directly on here and easily accessed by this dial, and it works a treat. Whereas over here, it's all accessed kind of up here and it doesn't clean directly like by just moving that. And in my opinion, the milk froth that comes out of this is a high quality milk froth as well. It's just yummier. And you know, I think that's pretty key to what we're trying to get here with a really nice cafe-like quality experience. So those are probably the main differences from the Rivelias. There are others, and you can look at the individual reviews to kind of jump in and go another layer down on that. But those are the kind of the reasons why I think the Rivelia, what are the positives about the Rivelia, the Delonghi Rivelia. I almost feel actually there's one other big positive about the Rivelia is that it comes with dual hoppers. So a second hopper comes in the box. And why that's good is because with the Philips over here, you kind of got this one compartment, and that's where all your beans go. And whatever's in there is what you're getting, right? So unless you want to try and scoop it out with your hands or something. Whereas with the Rivelia, because it comes with a second hopper, you can fill a second hopper with a different type of coffee. And for me, that as someone who really likes decaf, so in the morning I really like to have a nice strong coffee, this hopper, and then later on in the evening if I feel like a coffee, I can have a decaf and it's just in a separate hopper. So I don't have to rely on instant like I used to. I can just have a second hopper going. And I think that's a really, really cool feature to add, and it wouldn't have cost them that much extra money to put it in a box as well. So that was a really cool move. Now, ultimately then, let's get to the crux of it. Which one should you get? And look, if money and budget isn't a concern for you, as you probably guessed from the way I've been talking, I would definitely go for the Delonghi Rivelia. So even though it costs you a bit more, I just find the usability and the functionality of the screen, the smaller footprint and the nicer design and the way it just kind of like, it doesn't have that bulk about it. Interestingly, this is actually the heavier device. It's just denser and engineered in a more compact way than the Philips. So the look of it, the design of it, slightly higher quality in the engineering and build quality, better UI, the dual hopper system as well. It's also quieter, I should notice as well. Like the coffee making's, they're loud machines, but this has definitely got a less of a kind of chainsawy sound to it than the Philips does. That's another point I should have brought up before about what helps the Delonghi Rivelia stand out. But the best thing about it is the coffee quality. And I think that the coffee quality, the taste and enjoyment and balance in the coffees that this produces automatically versus what the Philips produces automatically, it's just got a slight edge here. I think it's just a nicer coffee experience. Now, if budget is a bit of a concern for you though, and you can score this Philips 5400 at a good price, maybe you can get it close to 1,000, maybe even sub 1,000 if you find a really lucky good deal, then you're not going to fall ill. It's still a really great automatic coffee machine, and it still makes really great coffee. And we were using that for best part of 2 years happily, and really enjoying the coffee that was coming out of it. It's just in that side-by-side comparison, if you've got a little bit more money to spend, I think you're going to get significantly more value out of opting for the Delonghi Rivelia. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Thank you very much for watching this comparison. Make sure you check out those other videos. You can dive deeper into both machines and learn a bit more about them. And check out my other videos while you're there as well. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'm Chris Stead. Until next time, check you later. You.